A new crisis looms in the DRC. Speculation that the president could seek a third term sends opposition protesters onto the streets. Will Joseph Kabila abide by the constitution and stand down, or could political turmoil return to the DRC? This is Inside Story. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Fuli Batibo. The main opposition party in the Democratic Republic of Congo says President Joseph Kabila is trying to delay presidential elections in a bid to hang on to power. The elections are scheduled for the end of 2016, and Kabila, who's been in power since 2001, isn't allowed to run. But that hasn't stopped intense speculation he's maneuvering to extend his presidency beyond a second term. And now a coalition of opposition parties have taken to the streets of the capital, Kinshasa, to demand Kabila respects the constitution. Al Jazeera's Harun Mutasa helped set things up for us from the protests in Kinshasa.
You see all those different flags up there, the different colors. They represent most of the opposition parties in the Democratic Republic of Congo. And they say they have one message for President Kabila. They say they are concerned that he may try to hang on to power when his mandate ends. According to the Constitution, he can't run for a third term. And they're concerned he will try and do that come the end of next year. So they're gathering here, this open field in the capital Kinshasa, wanting to be heard, insisting that he should leave office when the time comes.
I don't like this President Kabila to continue this mandat. So I say that she can go. Yeah, I don't like Kabila for this country.
The main thing is the presidential election. It's meant to take place at the end of next year, 2016. Opposition members say there are signs that they could be delayed. The first sign being the government came out and said it doesn't have money to hold local, provincial and the presidential election. And the court told the Electoral Commission that they should come up with new dates for these elections because the time frame isn't there and the money isn't there. What does that mean? People are concerned that means Kabila will try and stay in power longer than it's meant to. And they're also concerned that it means opposition supporters will come onto the streets and protest. Those don't want him to stay in power. And that means the country could descend into chaos, into violence. Harun Mutasa reporting for Inside Story.
Well, Joseph Kabila was only 29 when he took power after his father, Laurent Désiré Kabila, was assassinated in 2001. Under his leadership, the DRC has emerged from its worst years of civil war, with Kabila trying to end impunity for atrocities in the eastern part of the country. The DRC also held its first democratic elections in 2006, which Kabila won. Now, if he chooses to abide by the constitution, he'd become the first Congolese president to step down in a peaceful transfer of power. If not, some fear a return to violence. Well, joining us for today's discussion on Inside Story, in London, we have Theo Ngombe, who is the representative of the opposition UDPS in the UK. In Washington, D.C., we have Ambassador Herman Cohen, a former U.S. Assistant Secretary of State for African Affairs. And I'd like to say that we tried to reach out to members of the ruling party and supporters of President Kabila, but they were not able to take part in today's discussion. Ambassador Cohen, Mr. Ngombe, thank you both for being on Inside Story today. If I may begin with you, Theo Ngombe, in London. President Kabila has yet to publicly state whether or not he'll run in 2016. Why do you, the opposition, believe that he wants to extend his presidency?
We, as an opposition party, we are asking Mr. Kabila to come up clearly and announce that he will not seek a third time in office, because he has been quiet for a long time. Regardless of what we are asking him to do, he doesn't want to come up. He's trying to maneuver his way up so he can stay in power behind 2016.
When you say he's trying to maneuver his way out or way up, as you say, what precisely is he doing? What are these maneuvers?
Recently, the government, Congolese government, said that there is no money for the election. It came up with the division of, or the creation of new 15 provinces, to make it 26. So all of those maneuver is showing that they are not ready. And the National Electoral Independent Commission say that they don't have money and they can't organize the election. The timetable given up by the CENI brings that we have to start with local elections with the biggest country in Africa, the DRC. We can't see how the government can give the money for those local elections to be organized so the presidential and parliamentarian election be held on September 2016. Those things, if we look at the electoral process, the younger people who were 13 on 2011, now they are up to register for votes, but they don't want to register them. All those things is just the maneuver they are trying to do for them to buy time so we can go over 2016. That's why we don't want that.
Okay. You talk about the CENI, which, just to explain to our viewers, is the Independent Electoral Commission in the DRC. Let me bring in Ambassador Cohen now in Washington, D.C. Ambassador, of course, this is a country that you know very well. You've written extensively about the DRC and the politics of the DRC. What is your gut feeling today? Right. Do you get a sense, like the opposition, that Kabila is maneuvering to try to hang on to power today?
Absolutely. You know, earlier in the year, Kabila suggested that there be a referendum to write a new constitution which would eliminate the two-term limit. Clearly, he wants to stay on. So since this resulted in street demonstrations and violence, he's stopped the idea of a referendum. So now what they're doing is creating all sorts of new elections, saying that they have no money in order to delay the election. This is known as slippage. In other words, we're not going to run again, but we're just going to delay and stay in power as long as possible.
But they have said, though, that elections will take place at the end of 2016. This is something they're adamant about today.
Oh, they're saying it, but they won't be able to achieve it. If they do not fund the local elections, they will not be able to have any election. What they should be doing now is just preparing for the presidential election. They have to register the new voters, as Mr. Ngombe has stated. They have to get all the voter cards out. It is not too late now. It is not too early now to start for the November election. But they're putting all of these other impediments, such as there are thousands of jurisdictions in the Congo. If they held local elections, it would take 3 years to complete those. So everything is pointing in the direction of delay, delay, delay.
Mr. Ngombe, President Kabila has proposed a national dialogue to iron out all these electoral issues. But you, the opposition, decided just a few weeks ago to break off those talks, to pull out of those talks, and not be involved anymore with the ruling party. Why is that? Why did you decide to stop this dialogue?
The dialogue was suggested by the UN Security Council, not by President Kabila, on beginning of 2013, which they called Accord Addis Abeba. So we, as a political party, we put a fade route, a roadmap
yes,
to that dialogue. So few weeks ago we started the pre-dialogue. Our people and Kabila people met for the first time in Italy and the second time in Spain. During those time, I think there was a progress, but when they came for the second time, they came to block the situation. We couldn't look at it and sit down and say that to accompany them on what they are doing. No, we put a stop. We say that we can't go on because they want just to hang on power, to share the power, to create a new national government, which we don't want to participate.
But were there specific issues that were discussed during this dialogue? Were there specific issues that arose during this dialogue beyond, you just saying that you have the feeling they want to hang on to power? Did something happen that broke off the talks?
Of course, they come up with stuff which we find that we can't buy them.
Such
they
as?
want us to go over than 2016, to the election to be organized after that time. Congolese people doesn't like that. They don't want that. They want Kabila to step out of the power by the 2016. There's still a time, nearly a year, for us to sit down, to look at those issues which are difficult, which are dividing the country, to try to find a solution on them so we can organize the elections together. There is election which cannot be organized, like the local one. We can't organize them. The country is too huge, too big. So we have to decide on election to be organized. For us, we say that we have to organize just the presidential and the parliamentarian election in September 2016.
Okay.
That's our position, is very clear. We put it clear to them. They don't want that.
Theo Ngombe, Ambassador Cohen, says that the Congolese people want Kabila out. Is that true, though? I mean, he did have a lot of support in 2006 and 2011, even though it was a controversial election in 2011.
Not 2011.
Right. In 2011, it was controversial because the opposition leader, Etienne Tshisekedi, is thought to have won. But he did have support in 2006. Is public opinion today against him in the DRC, as the opposition claims, or does he still have a lot of supports in various parts of the country?
No, I think he's lost all his support. His main support came from the Katanga province, where he is from, and also from Kivu province. Well, all of that support is gone, and as evidence for that, there were 7 parties that were not part of his group in parliament supporting him. All of these 7 parties have now decided to abandon Kabila. There is no more coalition or presidential coalition in the parliament. And remember, in 2011, which was a fraudulent election, Kabila won with only 36%. And all of the support that he had in the Swahili-speaking provinces of Kivu and Katanga, all of that is melted away. He really has zero support right now.
To what extent has the internal political situation affected what you're saying? I mean, how has it changed? How has the internal political situation changed since 2006, when Kabila first won the elections?
Well, I'll explain that. You know, the copper production in the Congo has been the highest in history. 1 million tons per year at a price of $10,000 a ton. That is the equivalent of 500,000 barrels of oil per day. And where has that revenue gone? That revenue has disappeared. Only 20% of the revenue is turning up in the budget. So Kabila cannot point to any improvements in the standard of living of the people. The only improvements have come from Chinese building roads and other infrastructure. But there's nothing been done for the Congolese people. So the people are saying, where's my electricity? Where's my water?
There have been accomplishments, though, Ambassador Cohen. You have to agree. I mean, under his leadership, DRC has emerged from, you know, some of the dark years of the war, even though the situation is still unstable in the east. I mean, he has brought the first democratic elections in 2006, as we said. It might be a mixed record, but you have to agree that he has accomplished a few things, hasn't he?
Well, the end of the war was fine, but, you know, the instability in the East, as you mentioned, continues. The women are continually being raped. Militias are roaming all over the North Kivu and in Bunia, and there is no peace in the East. Minerals are being stolen and trafficked through Rwanda and Uganda. But basically, the people are seeing no improvement in their standard of living, and the government is not spending any money for good works for the people. So no wonder they want change.
Okay. Mr. Ngombe in London, if, as you say, and I think you agree with Ambassador Cohen, that the people of the DRC want change today, what is the opposition offering them then? I mean, we have a very fluid opposition today. The main opposition leader, Etienne Tshisekedi, has been in Belgium since last year. The opposition parties seem disorganized. I want to know what the plan is for the opposition if it were to be in power today, if Kabila were not to hang on to power in 2016. What is the opposition offering the people of Congo?
Our political party, the UDPS, which is led by Mr. Tshisekedi, we are well organized. as we won the election in 2011, we are ready to go and face the people to be elected as a political party to lead the country from 2016. We have got the backing of other political party, the opposition, who are backing the UDPS for us to go ahead and try to change the life of Congolese people. They have suffered since 1998, even prior to that, by the Mobutu regime, and then the AFDEL regime. Kabila is now in power. He hasn't done anything for the Congolese people. All he have improved is his own bank account and his people bank account.
Right.
But the UDPS,
again, besides
we are ready to take the challenge.
Yeah, besides criticizing Kabila's record and saying that he has not done nothing for the Congolese people, what are you offering? What are you going to do for the Congolese people?
We will improve the way of living of Congolese people by creating new jobs. We will look at the system which is put in place. The education is down, actually, the health of the people. So all of that is the stuff which we will publish in coming days, our manifesto, how we see to intend the change in the country, the security, securing the people. The security in all the country is not there. We are talking about Kivu region. It's not only the Kivu region, even in Kinshasa, they are killing people. They are prisoners of opinion. People are in prison, put in prison. Why? Just because of their opinion. All those stuff, we want a country to be unified behind one person to go ahead and change the way of living of Congolese people.
Okay. Ambassador Cohen in Washington, do you think the opposition today and the UDPS in particular stands a better chance today of being in power?
I'm sure that if they have a free and fair election, I believe that they will put very good people in power. Mr. Tshisekedi's party is very well organized, and they have some very good people. There are other parties. There is Moise Katumbi, the former governor of Katanga. He is very popular and very good. Also, there's Vital Kamerhe, who comes from Kivu. He's the former president of the National Assembly. There's a lot of talent in the Congo, a lot of well-educated, dedicated people. What they need is honest government, which will use the revenue from high copper prices to get electricity, to get water, to build more roads and dams and create jobs, including manufacturing. Also, they have to get agriculture back. The Congo used to be a major agricultural power. All of that has declined because no money has been allocated for maintenance and improvements. It's all been stolen.
I just want to come back to President Kabila and whether or not he's going to stand for another term come 2016. There is currently an influential group within his ruling PPRD party who are trying to convince him, of course, to stay in power. But help me understand here, Ambassador Cohen, beyond the perks of power today, why might Kabila want to stay in office?
Well, there are issues of what happens after he leaves power. You know, he could be accused of war crimes. In 1996, he was part of the rebel army that was ousting President Mobutu. And in Kisangani, they were coming in from Rwanda. They caught up with some Hutus who presumably participated in the genocide, and about 80,000 of them were massacred right outside of Kisangani at the town of Tingi Tingi. And he was an officer, he was a high-ranking officer in the rebel army of his father, and he could be accused of war crimes there. And there are other things that have taken place. So what needs to be done, it seems to me, is for the parliament to pass an amnesty law that would give him immunity after he leaves office. I think this is a very important point.
Now, just looking at the wider picture now, Ambassador Cohen, it's becoming increasingly difficult for authoritarian African heads of states to hang on to power, to extend their terms in office. We saw this in Burkina Faso, of course, when Blaise Compaoré tried to change the constitution and stay in power. He was ousted. Do you think Kabila will take that risk today, the risk of ending up like Blaise Compaoré?
He might do that. He might do that, but I think he's already given up on the idea of changing the Constitution.
Okay.
They're no longer talking about that. So what they're doing is what they call slippage. The French term is glissement, which means just delay so that we can stay in power, maybe work something out. The secret talks with the UDPS, I believe they offered UDPS, the prime minister, they offered them a vice presidential job if they would agree to him staying in office another 2 years. And of course, the UDPS turned that down. And so he's going to try and bribe various opposition parties to agree to extending the term in return for all sorts of benefits. The fact that the parties that were supporting him in Parliament, the so-called G7, they have abandoned him now. And they're saying you have to follow the Constitution. So he really has no more support either within the political parties or within the population. So I think the only thing that he can do now is to just fill up the electoral calendar with irrelevant elections, local, provincial, and claim there is no money and try to get away with that. But that's not going to work. You had a demonstration today, and that's going to continue to get worse. Also, the American government and the European governments are planning sanctions against the Kabila and his family if there's no progress before the end of this year.
Okay.
They want to see an election preparation this year, or else they're going to cut off visas, they're going to freeze their bank accounts.
Okay.
So this is an international thing. It's not just a Congolese thing.
It is an international thing, and I want to hear from you in just a minute on what could be the consequences for the region. But let me just bring in Theo Ngombe of the UDPS. So right now, we are at a status quo, if you will, at a standstill with the opposition protesting, no national dialogue. What is your plan from now until 2016? I mean, if Kabila decides to stay on to power, how are you going to handle that? Because the risk being, of course, today that this might plunge the country into another conflict. How is the opposition planning to deal with this?
There are two options in front of us now. First of all, the dialogue was advocated by the UN Security Council. We will try to find how we will progress with the UN on that part of the options, how we will go ahead, which pressure can be put on Kabila to come back and see the light, how he can organize a free and fair election. So apart from that one, we will now ask our people to go on the street, to disobey on everything, so to put pressure on Kabila and the international community so we can see a way out of the crisis in the DRC.
Okay, so more demonstrations then is what you're planning. Ambassador Cohen, the peace, of course, between the DRC, Rwanda and Burundi remains extremely fragile today. How do you see a third Kabila term affecting the regional politics?
Well, I think a third Kabila term would be a disaster because internal security would collapse. I believe even his own presidential guard would not accept that because they're underpaid. And so I don't see him being able to stay in power. But the international community will not stand for it. You know, the United States has appointed a special envoy for the Great Lakes region, Congo, Rwanda, and Burundi, and it's Mr. Pariello. I've spoken to him, and he said, we're not going to stand for his prolonging his time in power, and there must be some progress by the end of this year. So what you're going to see is a combined U.S.-European Union putting on sanctions against the family, first of all, and then his entourage. He has a very shadowy group of people like the chief of police, the chief of the army, the chief of intelligence, who are all urging him to do whatever is necessary to stay in power. So all those people will be sanctions. They can't hide, and it'll be difficult for them. So and also remember, the United States has also said that Kagame, the president of Rwanda, should not run for a third term. And Kagame is their darling. They love Kagame. So if they're telling him not to run, Kabila can't run either.
Okay. It'll be very interesting to see, of course, what happens in the next few months. Thank you very much for a very informative discussion. Ambassador Herman Cohen in Washington, D.C., and Theo Ngombe in London. Thank you both for being on Inside Story. And thank you as well for watching. You can contact us by going to our program page, of course, on our website, aljazeera.com. You can also leave a comment on facebook.com/AJ Inside Story or tweet us at AJ Inside Story. From me, Foliba Thibault, and the whole team, thanks for watching. Bye for now.